Welcome to
4Kids Flashback. Hello, welcome to 4Kids Flashback. I am Tara Sands, joined as always by
Steve Yurko.
And here we are. I'm excited for today's show. We're interviewing Lloyd Goldfine, who he's one of the people that's been mentioned by other interviewed people in such a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, definitely.
So he better not be a jerk.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely, probably one of the most name dropped people so far from all the interviews recorded. So this was inevitable, but I am looking forward to it because definitely feels like he had a very important creative position in a lot of happenings here. So looking forward to what he has to say, especially about turtles.
Yes, especially turtles.
Yeah.
And the fact that he worked on both dubs and original animation makes him a really interesting guest.
Absolutely. The people that always kind of have experienced both worlds usually have some pretty interesting insights on everything.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he was also one of the people that had, and we'll get into this on the show, had come to 4Kids with prior experience. A lot of the people working there were young and it was their first job, and that was not the case with him. So that's a different perspective than we've gotten, which is I'm excited about. Steve, I had a realization today.
What's up?
That this podcast, we have interviewed many, many dudes. And there were more females working at 4Kids, and I realized that a bunch of them that I reached out to who I really did want to talk to were just don't like being interviewed. It wasn't that they had a bad experience at 4Kids, but the response was, "Oh, I don't really like." They're just more introverted or shyer people,
mm-hmm.
and I'm bummed. And I was just, I literally was just texting with Darren Dunstan, trying to telling him about the conundrum. And I wrote to him in all capital letters, "This podcast is a sausage fest."
I was saying, we gotta change the name now. It's gonna be the Four Dudes Flashback, Four Dudes Entertainment.
The Four Dudes and Tara. Yeah. But yeah, so I am actually going to make a concerted effort to try to find some more female guests. The actors, it's not a problem. There are definitely plenty of female actresses, if they prefer that. But yeah, I just wanted to let you guys know, because listen, you guys write to me with suggestions of who to have on the show all the time, which I very much appreciate. But rest assured, we have a very long list of people we want to talk to. But sometimes those people just don't, for whatever reason, are not interested in being on the show. So I want you guys to know that, so you don't think we're not trying.
And don't guess who. That's just weird.
Oh, no. And again, these are behind the scenes people that I don't think you would ever come up with.
Mm-hmm.
But I always reach out to them and I say, listen, if you have any stories you want to just put in writing, I'm always happy to share. So if there's any former employees out there that are shy about coming on, but just want to write even anonymously about your experiences at 4Kids, you can always write to us at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com.
And then we'll read them,
we'll read them for you.
And our best voices ever. No silliness.
We'll do weird accents. Speaking of which, our guest is in the waiting room. He's so early. I love that punctuality. But Steve, tell them all the podcasty stuff they should know before we let them in.
Okay, here's the deal. To start, just go to our website. That's 4kidsflashback.com. Use that number 4. Don't write the word 4. Just use the number 4.
Don't you dare.
Yeah, and you could find links to listen to us from there. But you got your Spotify, you got your Apple Podcasts, etc. That's all there. We're on there, and of course, if you kick us back some money, just $5 on Patreon, you can get some exclusive bonus content, episodes ad-free a week early.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you really...
Extra videos, extra scripts, all this cool stuff.
And if you really like our logo so much, you could...
That Steve designed, let's say that.
You could put that on a shirt or something. And where is that store, Tara?
Follow the link. It's a annoying link to say, so just follow the links for shopping at 4kidsflashback.com, and you'll get there.
And that's the business.
And here's Lloyd. Our guest today is Lloyd Goldfine. Lloyd was a development guy, a writer, a producer, and a director at 4Kids. He was really hands-on with all types of things at the company, most importantly, Ninja Turtles and Yu-Gi-Oh! And also shows like Rocket Monkeys, Viva Piñata, Incredible Crash Dummies that we really haven't had a chance to talk about on this show yet. So we're so happy he's here with us. Also, previous guests have said really nice things about him, so we are hoping he is as nice as they have said he is. No pressure. Welcome, Lloyd Goldfine.
Hey, guys. Nice to be here. I paid those people. They are liars professionally.
We'll see. We'll be the judge of that. So welcome. We started talking by accidentally right before we started recording about your background in New York City and what got you started in this creative field. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
How far back do you want to go?
Birth, womb. We'll start in the womb and we'll work
in the
our
womb.
way.
Yeah, I was a pain in the ass when I was in the womb. Well, growing up, I did all kinds of the same stuff I'm doing now. I did a lot of drawing. I drew comic books. I put on puppet shows. I made movies, audio tapes, like old timey radio show type things.
Love that.
And that's what we did for fun as kids. We made up songs and tried to play music, even though we didn't know how to play anything. So it was all good training for what I was going to do eventually. And in school, I went to the High School of Art and Design, which was great. I was lucky to get in there.
Where was that?
It was in Manhattan on 57th and 3rd.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to draw comic books, I thought. But when I got there and I saw how the other kids there could draw, it was shocking to me because they were amazing. They were just amazing. It blew my mind. And I could do what they could do, but they could do it, in a second, and I could do it in a month.
Right.
So I said, maybe I could put those skills to use in a different way. And I moved to the film program because I loved all that other stuff as well. And that was a good choice for me.
What an amazing high school to go to. I mean,
it was a lucky, not just an amazing high school to go to. I had an amazing teacher. That always makes a difference in people's life. If you come across somebody who encourages you and takes a special interest. And I had Mr. Klein, my film teacher at Art and Design, and he was amazing. And I've had several people along the way who I was very lucky in that respect. He was great. So
Steve is one of those annoying people who is an artist that annoys me like that because I'm like, I this would take me a year. And
yes, Steve is already rubbing me the wrong way.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I had that. That kind of experience in college because, as we talked about in the show, I went to School of Visual Arts in New York City and I kind of was like big fish in a small pond and like growing up. And then, I was like,
exactly.
I was like, voted most
right.
artistic.
You were the school artist, right?
Yeah. Like I was like one of, if not like, the person people thought of, because I had people that I hadn't talked to since elementary school that came up to me like, by the way, I voted for you for most artistic because I remember you used to draw. And I'm like, cool, thanks. Good talking to you. And then I remember my sophomore year in college, and then all of a sudden I was like, I'm like, there's people that are just leagues above me right now. I have a lot. It was a very, very humbling experience.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a good learning experience for sure. Well, anyway, this High School of Art and Design was so great that I actually got thrown out of it.
That's the sign of a great school.
Yeah, great school. So, we got thrown out in a senior year, me and my buddy Floyd. And
hold on.
So, yeah, Lloyd and Floyd, yes. That's
okay.
correct.
And there's a voice actor named Lloyd Floyd. That's bizarre. Yeah. Okay.
Tangent. Yeah, he's unaffiliated.
Yeah.
So it was a world-renowned Lloyd and Floyd comedy team. And we both got thrown out of school in our senior year. at art and design because it's a privilege to go there. They let us know.
Mm-hmm.
And they were right to do so. That was another great learning experience. So I had to go to Jamaica High School in Queens,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no film classes in Jamaica High School.
Oh.
There's no art classes. It's a very different. So it was another good kick in the head.
Yeah.
So I started taking classes on the weekends. There was a film program at SVA, Steve's alma mater. And that was another great experience and another great teacher there, very encouraging. And then it was time to go to college. I went to Queens College because I couldn't afford, I think Queens College was like $750 a semester. It's
wow.
like crazy.
And now, oh my God.
Right. And I had interviewed at NYU Film School, and I had a wonderful interview with this great woman who said, listen, it doesn't matter where you go the first 2 years, and you just be bleeding money. Go to Queens College. They have a great program there, and then get your grades up. My grades were terrible because I got thrown out of school. And then you can transfer here later, and you'll save some money and you'll get your grades up and blah, 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 and do something like that. So I said, okay, thank you. And turned out while I was at Queens College, more great teachers, Jonathan Buxbaum, and these just a lot of really good folks. Well, there were all these professors at Queens College that wanted to have a film program, but they didn't have one yet. So they were teaching in the philosophy department. They were teaching philosophy of film, and in the romance languages department, they were teaching about film, and everybody was teaching about film. And they told me there's a film institute somewhere in the City College program. There's a film institute somewhere that you can go to for $750 a semester.
Wow.
So I had to track it down, and I found it finally. It was in Harlem. It was at City College in Harlem, and I transferred up there, and that's where I kind of finished up my college stuff.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, one of the students up there transferred down to NYU, and he was having a hard time down there. So he asked me, could I go down there and help him make his films?
Oh, wow.
So I went down there and I started making thesis films for the students down there. So I made a film with this guy, and then I made a short film with somebody else.
Wow.
And I enjoyed that experience of going to. I learned a lot. I started going to some of his film classes instead of him going to
NYU education.
Kinda, yeah.
Also, they must have had access to, I'm guessing, like incredible equipment and more state of the art. Yeah.
Right. So suddenly, at City College, we had good equipment, but it was nothing compared to what was going on at NYU.
Right.
But at NYU, they had this incredible lousy attitudes. Everybody it was very cutthroat, and it was very snooty. Whereas at City College, it was a family. It was really wonderful. Yeah. So I got to make some films at NYU. I got to go to some classes there, and then another buddy of mine was taking animation classes at SVA, and I started monitoring classes at SVA, and I started going to all the classes, all the different schools in New York, kind of for free through my buddies.
You're such a hooligan.
That's kind of it was it was the street kid thing to do.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It was good. It was a good experience. So that was my training, my long-winded training.
Were you writing during this time?
Yeah, because anything you wanted to do, usually you had to create it. It was just part of the process. It was just all organic, soup to nuts. Do it.
This is maybe a strange question, but what at that point, because I love hearing what people thought they were going to do versus what they ended up doing. What did you think your career was going to be at that point?
It's interesting because I never I always thought it was all the same thing.
Okay. It was a creative life, and you wanted a
like
creative life.
I thought drawing a comic book or making a movie or singing a song was all the same thing. I mean, that stuff that we did when we were playing, putting on a puppet show or drawing a comic book or whatever it was all the same thing. So later on in life, if I was making a commercial, it was the same thing. It was telling a story or making a movie.
Right.
It was all part of the same idea.
That's actually a great way to look at it. Because when people do ask me that, I say, listen, I wanted a creative life, whether that's being on camera or doing voiceovers, or I wanted to be creative. So when you accomplish that, that's really interesting. So you finished school. What was your first job out of paid?
Well, but I didn't finish school.
Oh, of course not.
And I was jumping around, going to the classes and making films wherever there was an opportunity to do that, as, crewing on stuff, and, Paris is burning and whatever was happening. Whatever came up, and it didn't matter if I got my degree or whatever it was. It's just, I was taking things as they came.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my friends, I was meeting them for lunch, and he was going for a internship interview, and I was meeting him at the place where he was having that interview. And as one thing led to another, and I wound up getting a job at this place just by being in the hallway there. And this place was it was an advertising agency called Griffin Bacall.
Mm-hmm.
That did all the advertising for Hasbro toys, among other things. And they also owned Sunbow Productions, which did all the cartoons for the toys. So G.I. Joe, Transformers, My Little Pony, Mr. Potato Head, blah, blah, blah.
Uh-huh.
And that was my first real job.
What was your position at this ad agency?
So I came in as just like a helper, I guess. I mean, I was a PA. They had a department called promotions,
mm-hmm.
where anything that wasn't a straight ahead commercial, like if it was a sweepstakes or a special sales films or whatever, and I was a PA in that department for a few months. And what I noticed is my paycheck just never showed up. It took forever, and it 3 months. It was like the summer's over. What's going on? Where's my money? And I would get this tiny check, and it turned out they were paying me as an intern. They were paying me car fare.
Oh my God!
Somebody tried to pull a fast one.
That's awful. Well, it makes up for that free education that you were getting.
I guess so. So when I complained to the boss, he kind of he yelled at the guy who tried to pull a fast one. He put me on as an actual producer. And in short time, I wound up going from an unpaid intern, whatever that was, to supervising producer, group creative director, whatever.
That's a much better business
Much
card.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it took a little while, but it worked. And so, I was in charge of all the boys type stuff there for advertising, but I was also working at Sunbow, helping them do show pitches and develop things and looking at storyboard, whatever they needed on the shows.
What an amazing education, because you're learning kind of the licensing side of all of this, the creative side of it, the promotional side of it, and the business of it all. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't want to pretend that I know too much of the business side because my mind turns off.
Okay, so numbers were not really okay.
Yeah, but with osmosis, it all you absorb a lot.
Sure.
But and again, being at the right place at the right time, surely by accident, maybe, like being at Hasbro at a time when there were just great people there. Yeah. They were wonderful people. It was like we would have to fly up to Hasbro twice a week sometimes and present stuff and deal with them. And it was like going to visit your favorite relatives.
Yeah. Yeah, you were lucky to be in situations like this. Yeah.
And now that whole business is very corporate. I worked for Mattel more recently, and it's just not the same business anymore. So it was great. It was a great time. And, so they would, Mattel, Hasbro would say, help us develop a new line, help us develop a new story for this, help us, what's a new special we could do? What's a ride we can pitch to Universal Studios for Transformers?
Right.
And you would get to work on all these crazy things. It was wonderful.
That's so cool. Okay, so what was the next job after that, before leading up to the 4Kids? Because I know you had you were one of the few people that had awesome experiences before 4Kids. A lot of people got their first job at 4Kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was my main huge job, and that was doing a lot of stuff, writing, movie pitches and all kinds of stuff for Hasbro, and then also having time to go off. I made a movie for 20th Century Fox that they let me take time off to do.
Wow.
And stuff like that. And then I did some more freelance crewing, and I was an assistant cameraman and a cinematographer on a few projects. And then I got the gig at 4Kids.
And that was 2001. Is that ish correct? Okay.
That ish correct.
So you kind of knew what Pokemon was at this point, because it had already. Was that on your radar at all?
Yeah, well, it was everywhere. Yeah. It was hard to not be on your radar.
That is true. I wasn't sure, because maybe you were shooting somewhere weird. I don't know.
No, it was everywhere, and I had 2 little boys, and they they were into it. They would watch it, and I would I can't make sense of this.
As long as they're being quiet, it's working.
Right. No. They were very involved, and I was trying to learn how can I play this game with them. So yeah, it was everywhere.
So when you went for your meeting, was that sort of what you were thinking? Ooh, the kids will love if I work here. Do you remember that first interview meeting?
Oh yeah, it was great. It was funny because 4Kids licensing, was in this whole building uptown, but 4Kids Productions was 7-8 people.
Oh, it was the early days. Yeah.
It was tiny, and I was at the time I was doing business on my own as a one-man advertising agency.
Okay.
And I had to hire somebody to be my media buyer. And that person worked at 4Kids and mentioned to me, oh yeah, they need people. And at the production place, it was Shelley.
Oh, okay.
Shelley Hirsch. And Shelley, I've been telling you, I'm looking for a good production gig. I've been saying this to you all day long. What are you doing? Yes. Introduce me. So I met Norman, and it was great. We hit it off right away. And it was not even that long of a conversation. He was like, sounds good. You've done a lot of stuff. Let's do this.
Yeah, it sounds like he kind of knew, he had a gut feeling about certain people. Literally in that meeting, he made the decision. Whereas, it wasn't you waited for a week or, he just kind of
No, he didn't say I'll call you. He said, yeah. So this sounds good. And I'll do it. And then the next day I come to work or whatever, there's no space. So I'm sitting at the other end of his desk. We're just staring at each other. And that's how it was for about a month or so.
Wait, so in 2001, they were already on 23rd Street, right?
No.
So it was really early.
I mean, I'm not good with dates, but I'll just say we weren't. When I started, we weren't. 23rd Street was still the I forget the other name of the audio. That was an audio.
Right, they were
place.
building the studios and doing all
Millennium?
of that stuff.
Was it Millennium?
Oh, you know what? I don't know. I didn't.
I'm not. I don't remember.
Because we would record somewhere totally different in those days. We were recording either at Taj or wherever.
Well, that was an audio facility, and John Siegler's room was John Siegler's room. They did music and stuff, and they had done some work for 4Kids, but that facility was not ours.
We found out from a few people that John Siegler's office was their hideout, when they were in a bad mood or they just wanted. Was that for you as well?
No, I didn't have time. I didn't have time to be in a bad mood.
Good. Well, okay. Too busy.
Kind of. So yeah. So no. So when I started, we were all still up, uptown, and I would sit on the opposite side of Norman's. It was very awkward.
I bet.
We would make jokes, and we would do a lot of shtick to each other. But eventually, we had to do some work. And then when the conference room was empty, which was rarely, I would slip in there and get some writing done.
Okay, so now I'm guessing because Pokemon was already in production at this point.
No, it had been in production for a while.
Right. So Yu-Gi-Oh was probably starting up around then, or
that's why I think he hired me at the point that he did, was because Yu-Gi-Oh was going to start up, and I was just waiting for the shows to come in and maybe to get some translations of the scripts so I could start thinking about how we're going to adapt this thing.
You were a comic book guy, you said. So did you read any of the manga ahead of time, since that was
No, there wasn't really a lot of that around that I knew of. Mm-hmm. Not that I was a huge manga reader anyway. I mean, the couple of, like Akira and stuff I knew of, or Lone Wolf and Cub, but I wasn't a manga head.
Okay.
So we worked on we had to produce a Yu-Gi-Oh promotional thing, and we had to produce this Yu-Gi-Oh kind of live action licensing presentation, which was kind of fun to see. It was like this big extravaganza with people in Yu-Gi-Oh masks and all that.
Wow. Where was you? Can you talk about that more? People like hearing about all this weird promotional stuff.
I don't remember much because I was like it's all a blur because it was my first couple weeks there.
Yeah,
we wrote this thing. It had a bunch of different parts to it. It was a song, and it was a rap, and it was a chant, and it had Egyptian themes in it, and it kind of set the tone a little bit for the music we finally used to open the show with too, the actual series.
Yeah.
And then we had kids, a bunch of kids wearing Yugi masks and pendants, and they would march in to the licensing thing.
Wow,
it was crazy. It was crazy.
That's amazing.
Was this any similar? Was this Tara? Is this similar at all to like that Toys R Us video?
I was just gonna ask that.
They might have repurposed some of it.
Yeah. Some of that, and I know like even the voices were different. Like someone else is playing Yugi because I guess it hadn't been cast yet, and they just said we need a promo video. Does that ring a bell?
It's possible, and it might even be the same video. I couldn't say.
Okay.
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
No. Listen. A lot of what we say on the show is, "Do you remember?" Because we don't assume that you remember things from 25. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! We're doing the 25th anniversary of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. Like it's.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like we're doing a cast reunion. I mean, it's been kind of bonkers, and I feel really old.
Did they talk about? Greg was supposed to be Yugi, the voice of Yugi.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. He's Yugi on that, but we didn't know if he was actually cast as Yugi.
He was cast as Yugi. The two voices that we liked for Yugi were Greg and Dan, very much. And Greg won out, and then Greg decided now was the time for him to make a play to get to LA and see if he could, maybe get some acting stuff. And he did for a while.
Interesting.
He did pretty good, I thought. But so he declined the role.
That's a different version of this story. So that's so interesting. Okay.
Well, it's the truth.
Yeah, no, that's great. No, it's great to know the truth.
So Dan took his place, and he did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, no.
And from then on, Dan's done just amazing work for us on everything.
Yeah.
I mean, he used to just make me piss my pants laughing on Viva Piñata on a regular basis.
He's so talented. And
he's just so great.
I don't know if you've seen his hair recently, but he looks like a wizard, and it is.
Oh, I have not seen him.
It's enchanting.
I would love to see him lately, actually.
Just look up his Twitter. You'll see it. You'll see his long locks. Yeah. So, and I know that Eric told us a story about how you hadn't cast Seto Kaiba, and he was directing, and then finally he said, "All right, I'm just going to read for it." Do you remember that route?
Well, I remember it differently.
Okay, yeah. Let's hear it.
you know, Eric, Eric was, I think I remember Eric campaigning very, very heavily to be Seto Kaiba. But he was also at the same time, he was saying, I'll just read for Seto Kaiba so they have someone to play off of.
Oh, you know what? That is what he said. That he said, listen, I'm going to dub the episode for you. If you don't like it, scrap it. But if you do like it, it's there. So something like that. But it was
very obvious that he wanted that so bad, and he was really working it. So don't let him tell you anything different.
I won't. That's my big brother. I know the deal.
So, and he was great. He was great.
It worked.
And I knew for a while that he was going to be Seto, but we didn't let him know.
Okay, that's funny. That I like.
So, and Eric was great, and Eric was our voice director for forever on that show, and he did a great job. And for Viva Piñata, we had a lot of fun together.
Do you remember the process of how you decided what names were going to be kept from the original Japanese and what you changed?
Yeah, well, let's just talk in general about a kind of adapting or approaching the show. Mm-hmm. So when we first were presented with the show, here's the show, watch the show. What do you think of the show? So the first thing was visually looks amazing. The colors, the design. I thought there was something here. Some of the shows that 4Kids acquired didn't always feel like it had something, and we go, what is this show?
Yes. Yes, that's not
but
untrue.
Yu-Gi-Oh looked great. It looked great. It looked like it could really be something. But there were lots of questions like, what is happening here? What does this mean? What is this transformation? What is that pendant for? Mm-hmm. Why are things Egyptian? What are these monsters? Are they coming alive? Are those real monsters? Are they illusions? Are they hollow? What? So we had all of that. So then we said, well, we got to get these scripts translated. That'll solve the problem. That'll explain it to us. Mm-hmm. And then we got the scripts back, and it was just 11 pages of characters saying each other's names. Jonuchi, Yugi, Jonuchi. It's like, oh my God, this is not helpful. Nothing was really explained. There was never an explanation. There was never a why or a how in the script. And as we went deeper into the series, there was also the gameplay didn't really match how you play the game.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like what they did when they would play the cards or this or that, it was not in sync with the actual game that 4Kids was going to be selling to the kids. So if the idea is they're supposed to be watching the show to learn how to play the game, or as much of that as we get as close to that as we could, mm-hmm. It wasn't happening. So culturally, the difference in storytelling, as near as I could tell it, was that in the original, they don't really care about the why and the how. And that's fine. And that's very, it could be looked at as spiritual or very open or very accepting. Mm-hmm. But for a Western audience, it's very confusing and it's not necessarily satisfying. And for people trying to adapt the show, we're like, we couldn't even find out what happens next. They wouldn't tell us, like,
wow.
Well,
oh wow,
what's going to happen next, and they wouldn't tell us. And some of the times they didn't want to tell us, and some of the times they didn't know, mm-hmm. but they would never ask the creator.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. So who were you speaking to, and was it ever the creator, or was it teams who were? It was getting lost in translation, possibly.
We never met the creator.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Sensei.
We never saw him. There were a couple of times where we met the consortium. Okay. It was called the consortium. There were a couple of times where they came. Mm-hmm. They spoke in Japanese. We had a translator. And they rarely spoke to us. They mostly spoke amongst themselves for long periods of time. and they never answered a question.
Wow. Well,
yeah, it was very, very difficult.
That's so disheartening, especially because of the amount of changes that you needed to make to this show, not only to make it for an American audience, but to make it acceptable for Saturday morning cartoon. I mean, the kind of violence you had to change, and we've heard that they normally got the blessing of the Japanese team for these kinds of changes, but maybe not on Yu-Gi-Oh specifically.
Yeah, I don't think there was no approval process that I was aware of where we submitted things. Okay. We did the best we could. We made a lot of guesses, and we lucked out more times than we didn't. Like, with what Pegasus was going to do, or who he was going to be, or why, what the Egyptian motif had to do with anything, and that when Yugi appears as Yami Yugi, there's a reason, and it's the spirit of an ancient pharaoh. I mean, we made all that up. We didn't have that to go on. We just made it up, and we were right.
Right, because you're not really adapting at that point. You're writing a new script, which I didn't realize what was happening.
You're certainly flying by the seat of your pants. You've got no guide, and it's not baked into what they're giving you, because you're just going by pictures. You're not going by, because they don't talk. It's not talked about in their show. So you're going by the images. So yeah, and then you've got to, fit your dialogue into the existing lip flap.
Yeah.
That's always fun.
I was going to ask you about that process where you I'm a writer. I'm not like this is now a whole other thing.
Well, so, that's a whole other process. So that's something that I took to pretty easily for whatever reason. And when I saw what Michael and Norman and Kathy had been doing with Pokemon, I was pretty impressed, because I saw what the shows were, and then I saw the process that they went through, and it wasn't like some of the other adaptations I'd seen. They had really rewritten it and made new characters and put in a lot of humor and better sound effects and new music and songs, and it was like they really went for it. And I think that's why it was so successful.
Speaking of music, I see some guitars behind you that are, our listening audience can't see. But what was the process for writing the opening theme for Yu-Gi-Oh, the incidental music, collaborating on that?
I mean, that's all John Siegler.
You're not going to pick up one of those guitars and show us how you wrote something?
No. I mean, I was lucky. I was very lucky to be able to participate with some of the music stuff. And me and John had fun, mostly as writing lyrics and things, because I enjoy it and it's a real kick. But yeah, no, John and some of the other guys over there, I mean, they're just amazing. It's amazing. That was a great thing about one of the best things about 4Kids. Two of the great things about 4Kids Productions. We could do anything in this little building. It was all self-contained, and we could do, from soup to nuts.
Yep.
Anything you could think of, you could do it in-house there. It was crazy. There's nothing like it. There was nothing like it.
Especially once you started doing Ninja Turtles, it really was everything. I mean,
everything.
Like we've talked about how they broke down walls and expanded the space. I mean, what a cool time to be working and seeing a place blow up and overnight. It was great. It was just great. There was nothing like it, and it was a very special place and a very special time. And the other great thing was the people, just phenomenal people everywhere you turn, and some lifelong friends, and it was just too cool. Yeah. You could do anything. One more Yu-Gi-Oh question before we move on to other. There's so many things to talk about. Sorry.
Okay.
I believe you were only on the first season of Yu-Gi-Oh before I think Mike Pecorello joined you and took over, or.
Yeah, I think I did the first 100 and something.
Oh wow. Okay. So.
Yeah, well, they do big seasons there.
That's right. They're longer. So you were doing this stuff, and the changes that you had to make, what was that process like? I know some of those things had to be rotoscoped out. Sometimes they just couldn't use certain
So we had
things.
So in addition to adapting, the script and deciding what the characters were going to be like and blah blah blah, then we had to change every single card in the show had to be replaced.
Insane.
because they couldn't. The cards in the show looked exactly like the cards they were selling, and that's illegal. Yeah. But if they were slightly different, then it wasn't illegal. So we would
I'll explain. The reason is because of rules in the States that you can't sell to children during a show. So if they looked too much like the real thing, 4Kids would have been fined for,
Correct. So, it's to protect children. Because otherwise it would have been a commercial. So anyway, so every single card had to be rotoscoped out and replaced with a card that looked almost exactly like the card that was being replaced. Yeah. And that's still happening to this day.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still being done the same way. We had to take out anything that was, overly sexy, anything that was overly violent, or if there was any blood, which from time to time there was. Sometimes we had to re-edit a few things or reflap things because we were changing the meaning, and we couldn't change the meaning to something more innocuous without extra flap.
Yeah.
And it all just kind of like a factory, but with high quality control and everyone kind of really caring about it. And the first year, it was me and Matt Durdick. It was his first job out of school, and Roger Slifer.
Okay, that's a name we haven't heard yet. Okay,
Roger was a really weird guy.
Okay,
who was he worked in comic books. He was the co-creator of a comic book character at DC called Lobo. And he worked at Sunbow for a while. Okay. Sunbow Productions for a while on some of the animated shows, and he came over to work on Yu-Gi-Oh! With us. So he was on Yu-Gi-Oh! With me for that first year, and then he continued. I think he continued with Mike Peck. I'm not sure.
I'll look it up. We'll look into that for sure.
But and Matt continued, and Matt's still doing Yu-Gi-Oh! I believe.
Yes, he is. Yeah. There's a lot of people still working over there.
I believe it was Mike Pecoraro who I think, because he didn't come on until season 2. I think he credited you for coming up with the Shadow Realm, if he's not mistaken. I would love to just get a confirmation on that.
Memory fails.
So
when did the Shadow Realm start?
That was like season 1, I think.
Oh yeah, then definitely then I'll say yes.
Because death really didn't there was instances of death in season 1, but not too much. So it was a quick, easy fix. But then season 2 got a lot more darker. So they're like, we really got to lean in on that now. So. I think I remember him crediting you, or he said it was probably Lloyd.
It's possible. It's possible, and it's possible we didn't know any better when we started it. That we just had to come up with what's going on here. We named it something.
Well, that's exactly what they said,
and we didn't realize it was death, even because it wasn't that much of it.
Well, it's funny because it comes up a lot in later seasons, and they're like, "Who came up with this Shadow Realm? We're saying it all the time now."
Let's blame Roger.
Yeah.
Roger. There was this thing where I think it was Sam Murakami. He named one card in the game after each one of us. Like everyone got a card. Roger wound up with Slifer, the blue dragon, like
red dragon.
The red dragon.
That's why it sounds familiar.
Yeah. And he took such pride in this, like he'd done something. He was so proud of it. He was so proud, and that's his main claim to fame.
That's hilarious. Now, wait, last question about this: did you ever learn how to play the game? Because I have not.
I have not. I have not because, well, as much as we tried to make it work in the show, so much of what was baked into the animation was never actually uh, repeatable when we were playing the game. And so things that I thought I knew how to do, when I would play it with my kids, they say, "What are you doing?
Right.
You're not." And I go, what are you talking about? That's episode 7. No, you can't do that. It's not right.
So many,
but my kids,
so many of you had young boys at home to be this test audience. Too. It's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, they loved it. I got to bring them to. There was a big Yu-Gi-Oh tournament at Madison Square Garden.
Wow. They must have thought you were a cool dad.
It was the greatest. We got to go up on stage in the middle of everything and watch the big battles on the Jumbotron. It was crazy.
That's all. We never even got to go to that stuff. I'm so
jealous.
So
much fun. Yeah, it was cool.
And my character was so busy being kidnapped all the time that he probably wouldn't have shown up anyway. Okay, so we should move on from this because I don't want to keep you for 17 hours. Okay. Chronologically, what show came next for you at 4Kids? Was it Turtles or?
Some stuff kind of piled up, and I'm not great on the timeline, but Turtles was the next big thing. I'm not sure. Do you know what the date of Crash Dummies was?
I think that was post Turtles. That might have been 2004.
It came in between. It came in between stuff. That's all. Okay, so I don't know. But Turtles was the next big thing.
Okay, but here's my question. Let's go chronologically because otherwise I'll get way too confused.
Sure.
So things like Crash Dummies and Rocket Monkeys, I had no idea those were like going on with anybody. I thought those were like strictly a Canada thing. I didn't know that those were being done by 4Kids staff in New York. What were these projects?
Crash Dummies was like a series of interstitials, shorts.
Mm-hmm.
We were just looking for other ways to do production, other ways to do programming and things to run here and there. And these were shorts that we did. They were directed by Mark Salisbury, who was a great animator. He was based in New York with at the time. A great guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we did I think we did like 2 seasons of them for Mattel, and they were a lot of fun. They were very, very silly. They were very violent. They were like just gags. They were very slapstick. Where they always wind up getting blown up. Matt Durdick did a lot of them with me, and they were kind of happening at a time where like everything else was happening. It was, it was a busy time.
Okay. So it's probably around the same time as Rocket Monkeys was going on. You also did
Rocket Monkeys was a project that kind of never got produced by us.
Okay.
We didn't actually make the show.
This is the one that I believe was recorded in Canada because we definitely didn't record this. Yeah.
No. So Rocket Monkeys was these two very talented, funny, sweet guys, Dan and Jason, who do now a series of fun books, Blueberry and Pancakes. And they created this property that 4Kids acquired, and we developed it into this ridiculously funny show. And we wrote, I don't know, 2 seasons worth of episodes, and that was right at the time where 4Kids started to then dissolve away.
Oh, I see. So this was later.
So
okay,
right. So we never. Well, it was happening for like a year and a half almost.
Oh, okay.
The development. I mean, it took a long time, and then I think 4Kids sold what was developed and what was done to another company, and then they did whatever they did with it.
Oh, I see. Okay. Because, the one I'm seeing here is looks like a different thing. So Viva Piñata happened during this time as well. That was around 2006. So
that was animated in Canada.
Okay, but voiced in the U.S. So you had, from your prior experience, you knew how to get animation done? Like, because again, this was a dubbing studio only. So you were, I would guess, like the guy there who was like, oh no, I know how to make a pipeline for new animation to get done.
Yeah, because I mean, again, not like I ever ran a studio, but I mean, we did a lot of things at 4Kid that we, we never did before. We had to become, a TV station. We had to become
Right.
the Fox box and 4Kids TV and all that stuff. But yeah, I had done animation segments for commercials, and then I had done animation for specials for Hasbro. A half an hour show here and a half an hour show there. So I basically knew the deal, and I had reviewed storyboards and timing sheets and all that stuff for Sunbow. Right. So yeah, I kind of knew the drill.
So was the approach, I mean, obviously was very different with something like Viva Piñata. I mean, there were 70 episodes and this was all new writing. So was that such a breath of fresh air after writing for a dub where you're watching lip flap and...
Well, Turtles came before Viva Piñata.
Oh, it did? Okay. So this was 2006 with Turtles. Yes.
So,
sorry about that. Okay.
So no, it's okay. It's okay. So after doing Yu-Gi-Oh, Norman and I were I just want to make sure it is all blending together. I think Turtles was next.
Well, honestly, Steve, what year was Turtles? 2005?
2003.
Oh, I'm way off. Okay, so you know what?
And we worked on it for a year before that. So Turtles
I guess
is next.
I was confused because the pipeline, because the animators were already at 4Kids. So I guess that was confusing to me why Viva Piñata wasn't also animated in-house. But maybe
because we were doing 2D animation and Viva Piñata's 3D animation.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so you guys were set up. Okay, let's go back to Turtles.
Okay, so we were doing Yu-Gi-Oh! And all the other adaptation shows, a lot of which I had helped out on as well, just to get them up and running. I really wanted to do I wanted to create a new show or do a full production or something. That's kind of where I had come from. And Norman wanted to do it too. He had been doing live action stuff and the Olympics and fighting live action ninja stuff. And so, we would talk about it from time to time. And then I had heard through the grapevine that Kids WB was developing a turtle show. A new Turtles series, and just the idea of that kind of bothered me.
Why? Explain.
As a Turtles fan, I just kind of pictured it right away as like, Casey and April are students in high school, and their buddies, Casey's forgot his homework, and the Turtles have to get it to him before he gets an F, and it just didn't seem. It seemed ignoble for the Turtles.
So it came from your love of Turtles. That's what I wanted to know. It came from you loving the property.
I loved the Turtles from the comic.
Okay. From
the black and white, kind of violent, kind of slightly dark comic book. So I thought maybe that was something we could pitch and perhaps convince the guys who owned the Turtles that I'm sure they would much rather do a version that was closer to what they had created than something that I know they didn't like the original Turtles cartoon.
Okay.
Or at least I suspected. I knew it. Anyway, so we put together a pitch, and me and Norman went up to Mirage Studios in Northampton, Massachusetts. And we pitched it to Peter Laird, who owned the Turtles outright at the time, and Gary Richardson, who ran the business for him. And pretty much there and then they said, "Yeah, let's do it."
Wow!
And that was like amazing. So we were in business. So that's kind of right there, and then we were kind of golden. So now we had to build a studio.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You didn't have. Right. Like 4Kids was, first of all, was a much smaller space. Like there were not artists there. There were not.
Right. So we had to get in another, but Norman had been kind of sussing out the space already. Okay. He's good.
He knows
what
dummy.
He's doing.
Yeah.
No. So there was a possible available space around the corner, And it was maybe, I mean, later on we took another floor.
Yeah.
And there was the bust a hole through the wall plan if needed and all that kind of stuff.
It's crazy.
So, but we had to get people who, you know, we had to find artists and designers and directors, and it was tricky because boys action adventure type stuff, it really is only done out in California. It's just not done in New York.
Right.
You know, there's preschool stuff in New York, but there's not a lot of this stuff.
Nick was there, maybe Little Airplane was there, but there wasn't a ton of, yeah.
Absolutely. So it was going to be tricky, and it was tricky for a while. You know, we found a lot of great talent, but we also, like, we wound up with we had a little kind of touch and go stuff. Like our first couple of directors maybe couldn't get it done, or maybe they were overwhelmed. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, but like we were having trouble in the very beginning getting started and getting our design stuff up.
Okay.
And then, but eventually we got some traction and we got the right people. And we got a first director who came in and stuck, who was really great, was Chuck Patton. Mm-hmm. And he helped us kind of fix the look for the Turtles for our show, which was great. I really loved that design. And he stayed with us for the first season.
Okay.
And it was tough. It was doing a show, you know, we were the little engine that could. We were knocking out our episodes of Ninja Turtles for 50 to 70% less than budget-wise than our competitors were doing episodes.
Oh, wow.
It was crazy.
Do you attribute that to? I know the production was unfortunately not union, so I know the actors were making a lot less. I don't know areas of that.
Well, it's not the voice talent. I mean, some places were, you know, stunt casting and doing, you know, hiring, William Shatner or whatever they were doing. But no, it was just animation stuff. You know, what WB was paying to animate an episode of Green Lantern was $1 million.
And you were able to cut to just figure out.
It wasn't cutting. We were just doing straight 2D animation economically in-house at our Wonder Factory, which, I mean, we were doing it all in-house. We weren't going to outside places. So we could do our graphics, we could do our designs, we could do our timing, we could do our everything there.
Right. It's surprising that more people haven't adopted that model too, because it does seem to make a lot of sense to have everything contained like that.
I mean, there was a time where things consolidated for a little while. Even, you know, at agencies and stuff, they would shoot and edit and mix and record everything in-house. Okay. And then that all kind of fell apart again. I don't know why.
I know you did bring in Sue Blue to voice direct, because we were also excited to work with an LA voice director, but it's partially because that job didn't exist really in New York City. It was not being done there as much.
Just wasn't being done there as much. And I think it gave a certain level of comfort to 4Kids people who were spending all this money and to, you know, Mirage. This was a bigger production. It was a bigger bet. And so it was like, we're bringing in this name voice person. Don't worry.
Right.
But I mean, I was there to get it all started. And then after a while, there was just, you know, the guys our voice guys, I mean, our voice casts, they were so good.
Amazing.
You know, and so versatile, and on so many different shows. It's the same repertoire company. It was just wonderful.
That's exactly what I call it. It's like we were a repertory company.
Yeah. So it was wonderful.
Yeah. For people there, I mean, I think not just for the actors, but for everybody to work on new animation was so exciting. And again, to go back to what we were talking about, you had been working on Yu-Gi-Oh, where you were locked into lip flap and all this stuff. So this must have been so exciting for you guys to do this.
It was great fun. It was great fun. You know, to see Darren, who was Pegasus, suddenly be Master Splinter.
We were just texting right before we recorded this episode. Yeah. I mean, like you said, these have become lifelong friends for so many of us. Do you remember the casting process for this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was tough at first. But you're always trying to find a distinct voice, a different voice. And sometimes the tendency for a lot of people is to, if you see the same names on the list, you don't want to do that. But I knew, I knew right away who was gonna bring it.
Yeah,
and it was the usual suspects. Yeah, and so I wound up with the people that I knew I was going to wind up with, and I was very happy.
One thing I'm curious about with the production of this show is if you ever found maybe standards and practices or just anything was a little more lenient with it, because it was compared to the dubs that were being altered and edited to fit Saturday morning TV standards in the West. Turtles was a very violent show. I don't want to say dark. I think it was like a very emotionally intelligent show. That I wonder if this has anything to do with just the fact that you guys were just making it from scratch. But I just felt like it was leagues above what the dubs were. I think I am just curious if you guys had a little more freedom.
Well, I don't know if it was freedom, but we really fought a lot for that show. Our pitch and our promise to Pete was we were going to try and do the original comic book as close as possible, as much as we could kind of get away with, still being responsible, but as much as we could, as close as we can get to that for Saturday morning. And there's a lot of gray areas, are they killing people or are they knocking people out? Well, let's just leave it ambiguous.
Right, because you had learned the ins and outs of standards and practices by this point, right?
We had done so much, about that. So, no blood, no impaling. You have to pick your, but you could certainly impale a robot. You can certainly chop the head off a robot. You know what I mean? So you pick your places, and then when you wanted to get really crazy, you had to be creative. And so, like a character like Baxter Stockman, we were trying to find ways to show that our Shredder is much more dangerous than you've ever seen Shredder before. So there was a lot of off-screen violence, like Baxter Stockman would be left alone with Shredder. And then you'd cut to the exterior of a building at the end of the episode, and you hear Baxter scream after Shredder threatened him. And then when you see Baxter a couple episodes later, he's wearing a neck brace.
It got far worse than that.
Right. And then over the course of then he's in a wheelchair, and then he's missing an arm. And eventually he's replaced with a whole robot. He's just a brain in a robot body. So we would do stuff like that.
I love the quote, you can impale a robot. That's going to go on a t-shirt. Yeah. Right.
Repeatedly, you can impale a robot. And we did.
And talk about this. There's one episode, this is an episode I always think of when I look back on the show, but this particular episode, I think, got away with way too much. I think it only aired once on Saturday mornings, and it was...
Oh, Insane in the Membrane?
Is that the Donatello episode where he gets warped into the future? Because that's the one I'm thinking.
No. Oh, okay. That was... Same as It Never Was?
I think so, yeah.
Where Splinter's dead and somebody's missing an arm and somebody's missing an eye.
Someone was missing an eye, but the future versions of the Turtles all die except Donnie.
Yeah.
And that aired once, I think.
No. That actually did air more than once.
Oh, okay.
The one that only aired once was a Baxter Stockman episode.
That's okay,
written by Matt Durdick. Called Insane in the Membrane, and he'll never let me live that down. Yeah.
We're trying to make our episode titles reminiscent of 4Kids titles. So we'll start working on yours. If you have any ideas for your podcast episode title, we are open to them.
Okay. All right, I'll think of it.
So Turtles goes for 100. You did 156 episodes of Turtles, which for new animation feels like a lot.
Well, we did 7 seasons, kind of, and we had more. We had written another season of, what were we in? Back to the Sewer that we never finished.
Oh, right. So what is Back to the Sewer exactly? Is it an offshoot or?
All right, so we did the original series for I forget how many seasons. Then the toy company wanted us to do something new. They wanted us to like refresh it. So we developed a few things and they didn't buy, and eventually they bought Fast Forward.
Okay.
Which was the Turtles in the Future.
Right.
And I think we did 2 seasons of that. And then they said, we want to go back to the way it was. So we went back to the sewer. And they went back in time to where they started, and we did that. God. And then we basically, 4Kids closed its doors.
Okay, so you were there until the bitter end of 4Kids. We haven't talked a ton about the last days, except for that it just felt strange in the studio. There's just less production going on, less people. What was it like for you? Did you see the writing on the wall?
Yeah, we knew, layoffs were happening. We were working very hard to finish up this kind of we knew it was going to be the last Turtles project. It was the 25th
Turtles Forever
anniversary.
Yeah,
Turtles Forever movie, right? And but people were like dropping like flies around us, and we were trying to finish it up. And a bunch of us got laid off before it was actually finished. Mm-hmm. And we just kept coming in to work, and we finished it up so that we could premiere it at Comic-Con, and that's what we did.
So that was a good last hurrah, I guess.
It was great. It was great. Yeah, it was a good way to go out.
The question that we have to ask all of you guys, because the fans want to know, like, there's a lot of lost media from the 4Kids days. Do you happen to have, like, scripts or videos of things, or people always want all this kind of behind-the-scenes stuff or missing stuff? So even if you don't have it now, is there, like, an attic you can go look in? Or
Well, all the Turtle stuff that we had, that 4Kids had, went to Nickelodeon when they bought the Turtles.
Oh, that makes sense. So that's who we have to hit up.
all the Turtle stuff that I had everything that I had all my storyboards, and I had all my toys, and I had everything.
It would have been really disheartening if Nickelodeon came for those two. They're like, no.
I fought them off. No. But when I had to move out here,
he's living in California now, we should say. Yeah.
Correct. Right. And so, in New York, you have basements and attics and garages, and in California, you have nothing.
Nope. A little more space than an apartment, but yeah.
So I had to get rid of it all, unfortunately.
Oh, man.
However, there was a kid who was a big turtle collector and fan, this little kid in my neighborhood, and his house burned down and he lost everything. Aww. So when I left, I gave him my whole garage full of turtle stuff.
Oh, good.
So he has it.
Good.
If you want to track him down.
Does he have like the storyboards and all that stuff?
Got all my scripts and storyboards and statues and toys and whatever.
Oh, we'll talk about this after that. Yeah. Okay. Because the fans, even if we just make a copy of things, the fans, they grew up with this stuff. The nostalgia is so strong for them. So they just love anything they can get.
I might have the storyboard of a main title somewhere. I don't have much of anything.
That's okay.
Yeah.
No pressure. We'll let you go. But the reason I'm doing this podcast is because I get asked about 4Kids and thanked for my work there. And I try to explain to people that I came in at the last minute and just said stuff.
So what were your years?
I was there from the beginning until 2005. And then I moved to LA. But, I want people to hear from you and the other creatives there who did all this work. And on their behalf, I'm thanking you for the time you put in there. And especially because you were there from day one of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is such a special title for so many people.
Mhm.
I remember there was a family I met that, like, their same kind of story, like their house burned down and they had their Yu-Gi-Oh DVD and they watched it over and over. And
Right.
they should be talking to you. So on their behalf, just know that what meaningful work you made for so many people.
Yeah, it's not it's nice. I still get letters from people. I don't know how they even find me.
I did
But
not give them your address.
No, but I mean, I get stuff here, and it's like, can you sign this? Can you tell me
Oh.
what such and such means? Yeah, here we go.
That's so
It's very
nice.
nice. Yeah, it is nice.
I'm glad that you are, because a lot of the staff does not get to hear that directly. So I'm really happy to hear that.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, it's great. It was a special place. Everybody that I speak to, and I'm still in touch with, a lot of folks. Matt and I just had we just saw Godzilla 2 days ago.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah.
Norman just texted me a couple minutes ago, but everybody, realizes what a special time it was.
Well, especially because you were working on Turtles with all those artists. So many of the artists from that have moved to LA because, again, that's really where the work was for them. So it does make sense that so many of us ended up living out here.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Roy's out here. Roy Burdine was one of our directors. He was great. He was our mainstay.
Okay.
Chuck Patton was there for season 1, and Roy was there for all the rest
Everything
of it.
else. Yeah.
He was amazing. Yeah. And a lot of the guys are out here now.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Sure. If you have anything else you want to know, or if you want to talk about anything we didn't, or if I left anything out, just let me know.
Oh, we'll bug you. What a Lloyd Goldfine that was. Everyone was right. He was nice.
Heart of Lloyd, or Gold.
Heart of the Gold. Fine. Oh, see, no, that's not a good episode title. But it should be like a Yu-Gi-Oh! Ish title for his episode.
Yeah, think about that. Yeah.
The Lloyd of the Cards. No. The Gold of the No. Oh, hi everybody.
We're not gonna. Our outro is not gonna be us pondering that for 10 minutes, which is a lot of dead air and a lot of ums and ahs. But
yeah, we'll behave now and give you a proper outro. But that was awesome to talk to somebody who was really that hands-on.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes.
Absolutely, and and who could like attest, and who's, it's always like, these are the kind of people. Not to say I'm like, these are the people you should bug. No, but it's like I feel for you and your fellow actors when you're asked like, why did they change this? And like you've talked about on the show how you didn't even know some of these shows were being changed. So it's good to kind of hear from someone producing and writing and adapting who could answer all this, who sometimes remembers all this stuff.
He did remember a lot of stuff, so that was great. We didn't get into the nitty gritty about like Joey's name change and things that specific, but again, he was just doing so much stuff there. So that could have been on someone else, or. And
honestly, him just talking Turtles could be like its own thing,
we could have done a whole episode just on Turtles. Maybe we will.
Yeah, it's a project that's always fascinated me. And from what what he talked about in this interview, like it was apparent in the show. I could tell even before he said, I'm like, he must have been a fan of the original comics because it feels very much in the spirit of those. And yeah, I just that definitely felt like just that show. Not that any of the other shows didn't, but truly Turtles came from like a place of passion. And I mean, it was a huge success.
I mean, the truth is that could have gone horribly wrong when you think about it. It was the first, I mean, he had dabbled in this shorter form stuff, but it was so many of those people's first big production in a space that had never even held these people. They're sourcing this talent in New York, a city that doesn't necessarily have all that artistic talent because they've moved to another coast. I mean, that's so interesting to me that it came out as well as it did, and just, I'm going to give him all the credit for that because it's fun too.
I mean,
but yes, no, there were a lot of people working really hard on it. I
mean, it lasted so many seasons, over 100 episodes, and what I like is like it hasn't been forgotten. Something I didn't bring up during the interview, but and I think I've talked about this before. What I love, it's even though Nickelodeon acquired all the rights to Ninja Turtles, is they don't hide this in the attic. When we were talking about attics earlier, they still just like on like their social media, they'll acknowledge this series, and I'm very thankful for that because as we talked about in the past, like this was probably as like the original Turtles was my Turtles in like the 90s, this was probably a young kid's Turtles in the 2000s, and it's good. It's like I don't know if I could stress this enough. It is a great show, and
I think like it's funny to hear you say it like that because I think in your mind again because of how you feel about 4Kids in general. Mm-hmm. It's almost as if you're saying it's good for 4Kids and it's really good. Like, but to me, it's just Turtles. So it's like, of course it's good. It's Turtles.
I mean, it feels like a backhanded compliment, but like
it does. But
yeah,
I get it though.
But like, I think I asked this question earlier. What was so interesting about it was 4Kids and like teenagers all thought 4Kids like, oh, that's the company that butchers anime. But then for some reason their Turtles is like incredibly mature and and way more violent. And that's and I'm saying darkness and edginess and violence isn't what makes something better. And I was surprised by that, but also it is a good show. Like I said, it's very emotionally intelligent. Characters, like have arcs in there. And it's it kind of like just akin to like what like Batman the Animated Series was. It was like
interesting. Okay.
I would I don't want to say it's like. I don't say like it's like it's on this. I don't want to be controversial. I don't even know why I'm apologizing for it. I'm just saying like I felt like
I might edit all this out. I don't know what you're talking about.
I was just saying the approach to that series felt like the approach to like Batman was in the early 90s, and I think that's why people really
and hearing his background and his love of comics makes all this make sense. Like the fact that they kind of fought for this and they made a pitch specifically for this team because they knew what else they might have made instead was really interesting. Because he was like, I can't watch this property I love go in this wrong direction, so I'm going to go in and tell them what show they should make. Like, that takes balls. That's very cool.
And it worked.
What I think is cool is that he had learned from working on the other shows what standards and practices would let you do. And he was able to then craft the perfect show in terms of how violent can I make this so that standards and practices cannot complain. And that's like, that's something you probably can't do on your very first show because you don't know all these rules and you don't know how to skirt them. Like he became an expert at dodging S&P and then got to make this awesome show, which you as a kid, you're like, oh, cool, they can do that. You weren't really realizing how they kind of managed to get around the rules,
In some ways, but
okay, so you saw it.
Sorry, I don't want to give myself too much credit.
But you were, and you also weren't a little kid at that point. You weren't.
No,
like
I was a teenager.
Yeah.
When
so
that
you understood that.
But yeah, I'd say like I'm well aware of like the things like this is what you can and can't do. But the fact that despite those hindrances, it still was a great show that even people would say was mature is an accomplishment.
Well, and what's funny is, like, if you asked me if there was blood, like, because I've seen a bunch of those episodes, if you said to me, Tara, do you ever see blood? I would have been like, probably. Like, it wouldn't have even occurred to me that there wasn't because you feel like, you know what I mean? Like, you can make people feel like there's a wound or a cut or something of blood when there's not, like, if you're stealthy about it.
I don't know. I think I'm getting, like, kind of... Maybe I'm just getting boring because now I'm like, I see things that are very hyper violent and I'm like, oh, this is trying too hard. I've like come full circle. I don't know. I've come
what?
Full
like
circle.
What's an example of that?
I don't know.
What do you mean?
I don't want to put anything on blast, but I think like there's some.
Oh no. Okay.
Like there's some like adult animation, and it really leans into the adult with just like really coarse language and hyper violence.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And I was like,
okay.
And I'm like,
I thought you meant Turtles, but no, you mean like
in general.
Like now they want to. It's almost for shock value, is what you're saying. Oh, I see.
Or
okay.
just I don't know. It's like it anytime I you would hear it's like they should make the cool gritty version of this, and I'm like, no, it's actually lamer when it's in my opinion.
See.
I think it's I think good things come out of limitations. I'm not saying like.
Although, you know what? Yeah. I'd like to see Smurfs cut a bitch. You know what I mean? Maybe that's
the next one
they need to do that
with. They only have one girl in the Smurfs. It's not going to.
Well, okay. When I say cut, I didn't necessarily mean cut her. I mean Gargamel. You know,
yeah.
I wouldn't mind if they opened fire on Gargamel.
He's trying to eat them or something.
He's such a douchebag. Terrible.
It's funny how this outro's gone places, but I have another tangent. I just didn't know where to bring this up.
Yeah, go for it.
Apparently, Lloyd wrote on this direct-to-video animation called Dr. Rabbit's World Tour.
What's that?
I don't know if this was commissioned by the Dentists of America or whatever, but this was a video. I think they would sometimes play this at dentist's office, or a teacher would throw this on when they were being lazy in elementary school.
Oh, interesting. Like it's educational.
Yeah. And I think this might have a bit of a cult following just because I don't know if you are aware of what YouTube poops are. Long story.
No, what is that?
But they're just like kind of just strange edits people make, like comedic edits people will make online, taking of certain media. And I know Dr. Rabbit was one of these videos that people used to take and make strange edits of and post it on YouTube.
We should have talked to him about that. I'm sure he would have.
I would be like, hey, you know, he worked on something that people kind of like, you know, took and made and weird and
I bet. Well, you know what? He has. I bet his kids found it and thought it was funny. So hopefully he has seen that.
I just saw that on his IMDb. I was like, oh, no way.
That's cool. Well, it's not like he created it. He was a writer on it. Is that what it says? Okay. Yeah. But that's interesting. Mm-hmm. I didn't. So wait, what is this called? YouTube poops?
It's just like a genre of like videos.
I'm so uncool. I don't know. Anything.
Well, it's really bizarre. It's like it kind of started up in like the early 2000s, around 2006 or 7, and it's just strange edits. Like people just take stuff and just.
Have you ever made one of these edits?
No, not me personally.
Okay, I'm just curious. Okay.
But I was watching them like around like 2007 or so, and like they would do this. Like I know what this might be our target audience. Like they would take. Like if you know what like the like Hotel Mario and the Zelda CDI games are, those are really strange videos on their own, and they would take those cutscenes. You don't have to look this up.
I will, but I might. Like when I can't sleep tonight.
I can't give my stamp of approval on these things. No. I can't assure you they'll be funny. They will be strange though.
Oh boy.
And if they're from the mid 2000s. Maybe some of the humor hasn't aged well. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure. It definitely hasn't.
No.
All right. Well, before we get ourselves canceled, let's wrap this up. Thank you to Lloyd Goldfine for being with us. Thank you, Steve. Thank you. We are Maji Media. Check out all their other shows at Maji. No, wait, they have a weird website. What is it?
We do.
MAJ. What is it? Maji.
Maji.media.
Okay. Check out all of Maji's other shows at Maji.media. They have a lot of anime-centric stuff that you'll like, including stuff that Steve is on. I can't speak. Subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/4kidsflashback. You know what you should do right now? You should leave us a 5-star review somewhere.
Please.
Or just go to YouTube and like all our videos. We've curated tons of stuff for you on YouTube. youtube.com/@4kidsflashback. I don't know. I think we've covered most of the important nonsense. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Should we come back next week and do it all again?
We'll catch you next time.
4Kids Flashback is a production of Maji Media, hosted by Tara Sands and Steve Yurko.
Producers are Zach Logan, Tara Sands, and Steve Yurko.
For more information, go to 4kidsflashback.com. That is the number 4. And if you worked at 4Kids and have a story you want to share, please email us at 4kidsflashback@gmail.com.
You can find us on social media at 4kidsflashback, and to listen early and ad-free, head to patreon.com/4kidsflashback. for podcast merchandise, find links on our website and Linktree.
As they say on every podcast, if you liked this show, please subscribe, rate, and review, and tell your friends, or 4. If you want to check out other Maji Media podcasts, go to maji.media. Thanks for listening.